I got a huge sum of money, and you just got an old house and a mere field? My brother Robin, who unexpectedly received a large inheritance, mocks me. To think that this is how they treat their daughter who has always taken care of and nursed them. You must not have been loved. His words are infuriating, but I don't talk back. Just you wait. I won't let this setback keep me down. Driven by anger towards Robin, I worked hard to restore the neglected field. My name is Carol, a 50-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Justin for 25 years, and our children have all grown up and become independent. I thought we could live a peaceful and enjoyable life together, just the two of us. But life doesn't always go as planned. As soon as our children became independent, I began to take care of our parents. Justin's parents had passed away long ago, so the ones I cared for were my own. My parents, who ran a farm, were always confident in their physical strength and were the picture of health. I often helped them, especially during the harvest season. The freshly picked vegetables were truly delicious. Juicy and sweet vegetables. I fondly remember them because I can no longer savor that taste. My parents couldn't defy aging and had to retire as their legs grew weaker. I really wanted to continue for longer. My father Stuart said with a weak smile. I wish I could let Carol taste those vegetables again. My mother Olivia expressed her regret. It would have been great if Robin had taken over. My father said, feeling down. I have an older brother, Robin, 2 years older than me. Robin has always been irresponsible, acting on a whim and doing whatever he pleases. He barely attended high school and eventually dropped out, claiming it was too much trouble. He left home, never settling into a steady job, working odd jobs here and there, and then would suddenly return home to demand money from our parents. Yet, because he is their son, they couldn't be harsh to him. Robin also stopped visiting the house after our parents quit farming. There will be no money received from parents living on a pension, he used to say. If there's no money, he has no business with them. As much as he is my brother, he's the worst. I try to forget such brother exists, but he's still family. Sometimes, even my parents would worry. I wonder if that child is doing all right. They would say. But after they quit farming, they aged quickly. Maybe things would have been different if they had continued farming, even just as a hobby. By the time I started regretting it, they had already aged significantly and both became bedridden. Sorry, Carol. We're causing you trouble. My apologetic father and mother were met with my smiling denial. I am who I am today because of you both. Let me repay you. As I said this, my mother teared up and thanked me. Taking care of them was hard work, but my children were already independent, and I wasn't working since I was a housewife. I had thought about getting a part-time job once the kids were independent, but we weren't struggling financially, so I could put that off. After discussing with Justin, I decided to stay at my parents' house to take care of them. I don't think they have much time left. The shock of hearing this from the doctor was immense. I called Robin, crying. Won't you come to see our parents? Irresponsible as he may be, Robin is still my brother. To our parents, he is their beloved son. Surely, Robin remembers being loved by them. That's why I wanted him to see them one last time, but Robin's answer was terrible. Huh? Why should I? I'm busy, you know. Busy? Are you working? Like I'd bother with that. Yeah, I'm doing day labor. I worked yesterday, so I thought I might go see some horses today. Going to see horses? You mean betting on horse racing, right? As expected, Carol, you know me well. What are you thinking? You prioritize gambling over visiting our parents? It's more important to me than life itself. You're the worst! Furious at Robin's extremely disappointing behavior, I hung up the phone. After that, Robin never came to visit our parents at all. Day by day, both of them continued to weaken. And then, suddenly, my father passed away, followed by my mother the next day. They were a loving couple until the end. Once I had finished crying, busy time awaited me. Organizing a funeral for both of them was a huge task. With Justin's help and our 2 sons, we somehow managed it. It should have been something to discuss and arrange with Robin, but he never showed up. I managed to contact him, but... Huh? Our parents' funeral? I'm busy, I won't come. Just handle it however on your end. And with that, he hung up the phone. Handle it however? That's not possible. Even at 52, Robin remains incredibly irresponsible. Angry at Robin, the tearful funeral came to an end. And then, some time later, Robin finally returned to our family home. It was outrageous he didn't even come to the funeral, but the reason for his return was simple. It was to discuss the inheritance. Hey, Carol, long time no see. You've aged quite a bit. Leave it alone. You've aged too, Robin. I'm still younger looking than you, since I'm single and didn't age from raising kids. Maybe I look like your younger brother now? I was appalled that these were his first words after meeting his sister for the first time in a while. Despite claiming to enjoy his bachelor life, Robin looked significantly aged. Did you visit their graves? Why would I do such a meaningless thing? Do you think the dead can see that? It's not about that. I was irritated by Robin's attitude, showing no sense of loss for our parents, but arguing with him was pointless. I decided it was best to get the discussion over with quickly and took my seat. Well then, let's proceed, please. I said this to the lawyer present. Indeed, our parents had prepared a proper will. Under the supervision of the lawyer, we began to open the will. What does it say? What's my share? Hold on a minute. Robin eagerly leaned in as soon as the envelope was opened. I sighed at his impatience. Before my exasperated gaze, the lawyer spread out the will. As a result, Robin was to inherit cash. I was to inherit the family home and the field, the workplace where our parents had toiled. Upon hearing this, Robin, haha, can you believe that? That's just great, isn't it hilarious? Bursted out laughing. Cash, it's this statement, right? Wow, $300,000? Is this for real? Amazing. Farming really pays off. Along with the will, there was a bank account statement kept by the lawyer. It was indeed a significant amount. For Robin, who never had a steady job and lived day to day, this was a fortune. I was also a bit surprised to learn such an amount was left behind. Though they worked hard, my parents, whose hobbies and entertainment were farming, probably didn't have much use for money. And? What about you, Carol? With a mocking smile, Robin looked at me, still laughing. His question revealed his unpleasant character, even though he had heard the contents of the will. This house and the field. Ha ha ha. Really? Robin, holding his stomach, laughed heartily. Patience, just be patient. I reminded myself desperately, trying to contain my anger. I get a huge sum of money, and you just get an old house and a mere field. Robin said amidst his intense laughter. This is how they treat their daughter who took care of and nursed them? You weren't loved at all. I felt my blood boil but somehow managed to hold back. Arguing here would be meaningless. Indeed, the value of this house and field combined doesn't come close to the cash amount Robin inherited. Our parents wanted me to keep this house and field, our family home. So, I must endure. I know better than anyone that my parents loved me. Well, the eldest son is always loved, right? And I was the favorite son. I can understand why our parents felt that way. Finally stopping his laughter, Robin flaunted the bank account statement right in front of my eyes. So, that's how it is. I'm taking this with me. As if it was that simple. I didn't want any disputes over the inheritance later. The lawyer had prepared the documents, so Robin signed them and left. The moment Robin was out of sight. Never come back! I shouted. I'll forget about Robin. Likely, I'll never meet him again. Forgetting such a despicable person is best, a realization that came to me a year after my parents passed away. after completing various inheritance documents and procedures, and as I was clearing out the now empty family home, time seemed to fly by. Now, the once busy family home was empty. I have a house built by Justin, and to live here, as Robin said, is too old-fashioned. Maybe I should sell it sensibly. But the thought of losing my childhood home feels sad. Lost in these thoughts, I sat in the empty house. Suddenly, my eyes caught sight of a hoe in the garden. In this day and age, it's rare to use a hoe. Yet, my father preferred to use it. Stored out of reach during my childhood for safety. The iron part was now completely rusted and the handle severely decayed. It barely retained its original shape, but I touched it gently. What came to mind was the image of my father joyfully working in the fields, sweating, with my mother laughing beside him. Those were nostalgic, dearly cherished times. Quietly closing my eyes and indulging in these memories, I opened them with resolve and decided. All right. Farming? Yeah. Well, it's more like an extension of home gardening, a hobby. Isn't that nice? Having inherited the field, I thought to try something with it. When I discussed it with Justin, he easily agreed. Really? It's the field your parents left behind, you should try it. I couldn't be more grateful for Justin's support. With advice from a farmer acquaintance of my father, I began tending to the neglected field. I tried growing the same vegetables my father did, as well as experimenting with new varieties. It turned out to be a challenging task. Farming is hard. I had some experience with home gardening. But this was a whole different level. Not just the vastness of it, but also because these weren't just vegetables for personal consumption. Doing it seriously is this tough. Reviving the depleted soil alone was a challenge. Deciding on the right vegetables for the soil was tough. What about the seasons? The pests? Wild birds, too, turned out to be adversaries. Not only did I have to grow the crops, but I also had to think about protective measures. The work didn't progress easily, and I encountered many failures. I can't believe you're doing all this. As a rich man like me, it's unimaginable. That was Robin, who had called just to look down on me. Somehow, he had heard that I had started farming and called to comment. As usual, his words were discouraging, so I quickly hung up. Forget it. I have to forget that. Channeling my anger towards Robin into motivation, I tirelessly worked on the field. Farming equipment, even secondhand, was expensive, but I considered it a necessary investment and used my savings. It's your savings, so I won't say anything. The generous Justin said that to me. Although it was my savings, any money I had from before I was married was long gone, and what I used was really money Justin had given me for my allowance, saved over time. Even so, Justin didn't mind and supported me, which moved me to tears. I fell in love with him all over again. My sons also helped, researching on the internet and sharing information with me. The farmers who were acquaintances of my father were all kind people. Apart from the infuriating Robin, I was truly in a blessed environment, which allowed me to focus on farming. What started as a hobby quickly became a passion, and I got serious about it. I guess I really am my parents' daughter. As I thought this, time passed by. And then, I did it. Finally, the first harvest from my field. Though the produce wasn't as succulent and sweet as my parents', the yield was modest. What mattered was that I had accomplished it. I felt satisfied. Hey, not bad for a first-timer. Those encouraging words came from Mike, a farmer who had been a great help. He had always been concerned about the condition of my field. Mike's praise, reminiscent of a man about the same age as my father, deeply touched my heart. Adjust the amount of fertilizer and water a bit more. Ah yes, Stuart used to use that particular fertilizer. There was still so much I didn't know. Gathering every bit of information I could, I was determined to get closer to replicating my parents' tastes. Gradually, the field became more impressive. What started as a small corner was now a fully tended field. Days of trial and error with various crops. Gradually, the quality of the vegetables I grew improved, and eventually, Wow, another bountiful year. Thank you. Please continue to supply to us. Of course, thank you very much. My vegetables had reached a point where they could be sold. I even gained a favored business partner. A TV station even came to do a feature on me, a housewife who started farming and found success. Before I knew it, the vegetables I grew had become popular. But I couldn't have done it alone. Many people helped me, and above all, it was the wisdom my father had passed on to me. Yet, there was still much to do. I was far from achieving the taste of my father's produce. As I clenched my fist, determined to work harder, that's when I heard it. What's this all about? A voice I thought I had pushed to the edge of my memory. As I was about to head to the field, I heard the forgotten voice and turned around. Robin! It had been years. I could barely recognize him as Robin, but there was still a semblance of him. It wasn't just aging. Robin, you've changed so much. Yeah, I'm shining, right? But forget that. Noticing my gaze fixed on his head, Robin yelled angrily. However, his anger didn't frighten me at all. It's almost laughable. I want to laugh. But I knew laughing would only make things more complicated, so I desperately tried to hold it back. My cheeks were trembling, trying to suppress a smile. What brings you here, Robin? It's been a long time. I thought we would never meet again. I never expected Robin to visit the family home again. Robin pointed to the house standing tall behind me. What is this? He yelled. What do you mean? It's the house where you were born and raised. I know that. But it used to be dirtier. Why is it so clean now? Indeed, the once old and dirty house I had considered selling had been refurbished and was now quite beautiful. Why? Because I had it repaired. Where did you get the money for that? I earned it. How? I wish he wouldn't yell every time. Although we are approaching our 60s, my hearing is still fine. You know I started farming, right? The vegetables I grew on the field I inherited became popular, and the business is thriving. What? After many struggles and hard work, my business had finally taken off. And then Robin showed up. I had a bad feeling, and as expected, Robin began to insinuate. So, that field had great value, huh? Huh? What are you talking about? There's no way a complete amateur like you could run a profitable farming business so easily. Of course, it wasn't easy at all. That land must have been golden soil, right? He completely disregarded all the hard work I'd put in. And what's this about golden soil? It must have been incredibly nutrient-rich, powerful soil, right? You knew that and kept quiet. No, what are you talking about? I know the law. If a property is later found to be more valuable, the inheritance can be redivided. I'm going to file an objection. We'll redo the inheritance division, and I'll take the field. Are you stupid? Yes, I'm stupid. I mean, no, I'm not. Honestly, he is being stupid. I don't know where he got his information, but flaunting such superficial knowledge is just foolish. Sighing deeply. The value of the field hasn't changed. I said. Liar! Why would I lie? If you doubt it, why don't you have a real estate agent or someone appraise the land? You said it, then I'll do just that. You'll regret this. I won't. The land prices around here haven't changed much since the beginning. Really? If you doubt it, ask a real estate agent, like I said. Robin's confidence seemed to wane as I firmly stated this. His face began to cloud over with doubt. But you're actually making a profit, right? It's because of the field, right? Because of the field. Look, yes, I started farming because I had that land, and as a result, it's been profitable. See, I told you so. Ah, he's so annoying. I was gradually getting fed up with Robin's complete misunderstanding. All right, enough. Fed up with the conversation, I shouted dismissively. Fine. Robin can use half of the field. Do whatever you like with it. Yeah. Robin, as if he had achieved complete victory, thrust his fist into the air. But despite my dismissive shout, I was quite calm inside. Well, let him try. Robin never helped with the farming when our parents were around. I wondered how he would approach it. I'll be watching closely. Help me! Wow, that was quick. It had only been a month since Robin started farming. I divided the field in half and let Robin use the barren part, but he gave up within just a month and came asking for help. Huh? Help with what? I have no clue what to do. I thought as much. The field was poorly maintained, with no preparation for planting whatsoever. What had he been doing this past month? It's strange, isn't it? This field is supposed to be golden soil, right? I sowed seeds, but why aren't they growing properly? Still on about the golden soil, huh? And thinking that just sowing seeds is enough? If it was that easy to grow delicious crops, everyone would be doing it. You need to study more. Maybe in a few years, it might become profitable? I was about to dismiss him, but then Robin, looking like he might cry, pleaded with me. Please, no snotty tears. Help me out. You're my sis, right? I don't want to think of someone who couldn't even come to our parents' final moments as a brother. Don't start calling me sis just because you need something. I coldly brushed him off, and Robin hung his head right there. I'm already busy with my own field. I got here with the help of many people. You should work hard and become someone who can also receive help. Like I said earlier, you need to persevere for a few years, and then. I can't afford to be leisurely about this. I was about to leave Robin, who showed no willingness to try, but then he looked at me with a serious expression. I can't wait years or even months. I'm on the brink of a debt repayment deadline. He shouted. Debt. Yes. I have huge debts. Why? You inherited $300,000 in cash, right? I spent it. What? I poured it all into gambling, and now it's all gone. What? I hated the idea of working again, so I tried to make a big win with loans, but that's gone too. Then I heard you were making money from farming, so I thought I'd try it too. But why isn't it working for me? Why am I not making any money? How should I know? I was astounded and lost for words. Robin had squandered the significant inheritance from our parents in just a few years. And now he thought he could easily make money from farming? It was ridiculous. Carol, please, I'm begging you to help. I refuse. No matter how much Robin pleaded, I couldn't bring myself to help him. Maybe if he had shown some determination to try on his own, I might have offered some assistance. But Robin was always relying on others. His irresponsibility unchanged. Please, help me. The debt collectors are coming soon. I left Robin shouting and walked away from the field. I don't know what became of him after that. I heard rumors that he was being chased by debt collectors. But nothing beyond that. Eventually, the field returned to my care. The farming, now on a larger scale, was going well. Justin, who helped on his days off, massaged my shoulders as I worked. Maybe I could join you in farming after I retire? Justin had recently suggested this. And it made me very happy. Our sons also seemed quite interested, maybe they'll join in too. The house and field protected by my father and loved by my mother. I wonder if my parents would be pleased to see them come back to life. Dad, Mom, I'll keep taking care of the field. Aiming to recreate the delicious vegetables they grew, I'll keep working hard. So please, both of you, watch over us. We'll be living with my real mom, so you can go to some cheap facility for the elderly. Good luck with your life then. My name is Linda. I've been married to Snow for 10 years. Snow has a child from a previous marriage, Carrie. Perhaps because we got married during Carrie's teenage years, Carrie has never really taken to me. Despite my efforts to get along, it seemed to only make things worse, and it became evident that Carrie disliked me more as time went on. So, I've been keeping a respectful distance. I inherited an apartment from my parents and manage it as a rental property. It brings in a considerable amount each month, which I've been saving for a comfortable retirement since I have no reason to use my money. Snow has a lot of pride and can't stand things not going his way, which has made it difficult for him to keep a job for long. As a result, he earns less than the average man of his age. That's also why I never shared the details of my rental income with him. One day, as I was cleaning like usual, Carrie came home, slamming the door open.
It's so hot. Wow, this room is stifling. I can't believe you can stand it here. Unbelievable.
Saying that, Carrie turned down the air conditioning.
Welcome home. You're early. It's too hot to work, so I left early. Left early? Did you tell anyone at work you were leaving? Why should I? Someone will notice.
Hearing this, I sighed internally. Carrie is capricious, acting on whim without much thought for consequences. Like today, leaving work early on a whim, or canceling plans with friends if not feeling it. Moreover, Carrie complains when friends don't go along with plans. It seems Carrie doesn't realize this behavior has been pushing people away. I've even received a call from Carrie's workplace before. It was about Carrie's attitude at work, saying, "Pock."
We've sent to him multiple times about his work attitude, but there's been no improvement. Could the family possibly discuss this?
However, when I mentioned this to Snow, he was furious with the company. He told Carrie to quit such an inflexible job, and Carrie did. He has always doted on Carrie, spoiling her considerably. Of course, it's natural to cherish one's daughter, but he never disciplined her, always bending to her will. As a stepmother due to remarriage, I felt it was wrong to continue this way. I tried to teach Carrie about empathy, manners, and posture, but she wouldn't accept it, and my husband told me not to interfere, leading me to give up. While resuming cleaning and sighing, Carrie's mobile phone started ringing.
Yikes, it's my manager. Hello?
No, I've already gone home for the day.
Oh? I forgot about that meeting with a client today. Please apologize on my behalf.
It was clear from listening how selfish her reasoning was. Watching her talk to her manager while lounging on the sofa, I sighed again. Later that night, Snow came home. As I was warming up his dinner, Carrie entered the dining room.
Dad, you're home. Listen, it was so hot today, right? That's why I left work early.
She began telling him about her day.
Really? So you got a lecture from your manager for that? Why not quit if the company restricts your freedom?
Right?
I've been thinking about it.
Listening to their conversation, I felt dismayed. But I knew better than to intervene, as it would only lead to a quarrel, so I silently prepared his dinner. While he was eating, Carrie, talking and eating, caused him to drop his fork. As I picked it up silently, he started.
This fork is hard to use. You bought this, right? If it was easier to use, I wouldn't drop it.
This was nothing new. He has such high pride that he never admits fault.
Really, Linda, you're so inconsiderate.
I'm sorry. I'll buy something easier to use. Apologizing seemed to satisfy him, and I occasionally reminisced about how I didn't realize how proud he was when we were dating, thinking he was a kind person. Maybe I'm just tired. After a while, Carrie went back to her room, and I was washing the dinner dishes.
Today we started using a new tool at work, but it doesn't suit me, so I submitted a feedback form to my boss. A feedback form?
Yes.
I can't have it slowing down my work. Honestly, doing things manually is best.
But if it's the company's decision, shouldn't you try to adapt?
Saying that made my husband visibly upset. Are you saying I'm wrong?
No, that's not it at all. I'm sorry.
If this proposal doesn't get approved, I'm quitting my job. I don't want to work under these conditions.
It seems the saying like father, like son perfectly describes this situation. Snow, like Carrie, has a hard time sticking with a job. At the slightest dissatisfaction, he's ready to quit, having left several companies already. He's 53 this year. Does he really think finding another job at his age will be easy? Talking with him only tires me out, so I decide to go to bed early. A month passed, and I started to notice something off with my husband. It seemed like my intuition was right. He always had his phone with him, now locked tight. On his days off, he'd head out for golf with his boss every week, and he started coming home later from work. I couldn't help but wonder if he was having an affair, but oddly, I wasn't as shocked as I thought I'd be. Is it because of age? Or has my love for him simply withered away? Feeling restless about it all, I decided to hire a detective to look into it. The detective was very understanding and agreed to take the case. About 3 weeks after hiring them, I got the results. It was bad news. My husband was indeed having an affair. Surprisingly, I was able to stay calm as I listened. But hearing who it was with felt like a knife twisting in my heart. It was his ex-wife. Among the photos the detective showed me, some even included Carrie, showing they'd been meeting up without me knowing. Realizing I was betrayed by the two people I could call family was devastating. Seeing my distress, the detective offered, "If you're considering a divorce, I can introduce you to a lawyer who specializes in such cases." I took the lawyer's business card just to be cautious, let them know I'd talk things over, and left with the investigation results. When my husband returned home late at night, and with Carrie already asleep, I broached the subject. I showed him the detective's findings and demanded an explanation. At first, he was taken aback by the results, but then he quickly turned defensive and started questioning me.
"Why are you doing this? You trying to make a fool out of me?"
"I didn't want to make a fool out of you. I was just concerned about your behavior and wanted to know the truth."
"So, are you satisfied now?"
"No, I want to hear it from you. What were you thinking, having an affair?"
"An affair? It might look that way. But it's your fault, you know." "What do you mean?" "I married you, even though you were second-hand, and you don't earn money, you're getting older, and you've never shown any gratitude for everything I've done for you. Is there any benefit for me being with you?"
Hearing this, I realized he had no idea about our financial situation. He didn't know that the rent and living expenses were almost entirely covered by my rental income. His salary from job hopping surely wasn't increasing, likely much less than his peers. He was oblivious to that fact.
"Are you serious?" "Of course I am. And you should know, the affair was with my ex-wife. Carrie is happy about us getting back together. There's no need for me to continue living with you. Carrie's happiness is my priority."
I understand how you feel. So, we're thinking of divorce then?
"It's not a matter of thinking, it's decided. It's actually good timing that this came out now. Get the divorce papers first thing tomorrow."
Facing such cruel statements, I no longer felt sadness. Instead, I was overwhelmed by regret, wondering why I ever ended up with this person.
"Understood. I'll go to the municipal office tomorrow." How will you explain it to Carrie?
Don't worry about it, I'll tell her. She hates you anyway.
Okay.
Though I knew he was not one to admit his faults, I was still taken aback by his blatant lack of concern. This unexpected reaction left me feeling even more dejected. Realizing I had never been needed hit me hard, making me question my entire existence up until now. The next day, I went to the municipal office to get the divorce papers. Stopping by a convenience store to buy a drink, I rummaged through my bag and found a business card. A lawyer. It was the card the detective had given me the day before. Considering the situation had escalated to divorce, I decided to seek advice. After collecting the divorce papers, I called the law firm straight away. Mentioning the detective's referral, I was able to smoothly secure an appointment. There had been a cancellation for the next day, so I booked that slot immediately. While preparing dinner as usual, Carrie came home.
Ew, making dinner even though you're getting a divorce? Is this some kind of lingering attachment?
It seemed she had already been informed by Snow.
If you don't want it, you don't have to eat.
As I continued cooking, Carrie started complaining, clearly displeased.
Why did Dad even marry you? I was against it from the start. Living under the same roof as an old person has been suffocating. Hearing about the divorce made me genuinely happy. Well, that's good for you. I also hated your pretentious attitude, acting as if you're not affected at all. Now you'll be all alone. Yes, I guess I will. I'll make the most of it.
Carrie left the house with a click of her tongue. That night, neither of them returned, and I ate dinner alone. The next day, I went to the law firm for my appointment and explained my situation to the lawyer. He suggested suing my husband and his affair partner for compensation. And I agreed to let him represent me. Returning home, I found my husband and Carrie waiting.
Where have you been? A housewife leaving the house. Who do you think you are? Really? Hope you weren't out spending Dad's money. I went to get the divorce papers from the office. So you're home today?
Placing the divorce papers on the table, Carrie rejoiced, and Snow started to fill them out immediately.
Oh, hurry up and pack your things and leave.
Carrie said this nastily, laughing beside my husband who was filling out the divorce papers.
Me?
Of course. You're the one who has to leave.
Why? Because we're getting divorced. It's obvious. Do as Carrie says. We'll be living with my real mom, so you can go to some cheap facility for the elderly.
Even though I pay $2,000 in rent? I thought, but if they were going that far, I decided I might as well leave.
All right, I'll leave. If that's what you want.
They had no other choice. You were just in the way.
Ugh, hurry up and pack your stuff.
Disgusted by their insults, I retreated to my room to pack my belongings.
Now we can live as a family with Mom again. Yay! Indeed. It's my fault for marrying such a person, causing you distress. Let's be a happy family of 3 again.
Their loud celebrations were audible even from my room. Feeling degraded, I decided to move to a retirement home I had considered for my old age. The next day, I took my things and headed there. On the way, I called my lawyer to discuss the settlement. The lawyer, equally appalled, reassured me, suggesting that moving might actually bring me happiness. I was headed to a renowned luxury retirement home, known nationwide, requiring a $1,000 entry fee. Despite its cost, its popularity was unmatched due to its excellent facilities. I had been saving up the rental income for when I turned 60, paying for the entrance fee to what I thought we'd enjoy together. But now, it seems even better that I'll be there alone. Leaving the legal matters to my lawyer, I also sought a bit of retribution by contacting a certain service. I didn't expect things to end without incident. A week after I left, Carrie called.
Hello? What do you want? What do I want? Some junk shop just came and took all our furniture. What's the meaning of this? Oh, I sold it. Sold it? How dare you do such a thing without permission? Of course. It was all mine, after all. What? What are you talking about? Exactly that. All the furniture and appliances were mine. Since I no longer live there, they're unnecessary, right? But that sofa was my favorite. I used it the most, so it's mine, right? I don't follow that logic. If you liked it so much, you should buy it yourself. I believe that sofa was around $13,000. $13,000? Are you kidding? But the bed. That bed is mine. Dad bought it for me. I was the one who bought that bed. He just told me to buy it. What? But wasn't it bought with Dad's money? I bought it with my money. That's why I'm saying I sold my belongings. Everything that's gone, I purchased. No way! Everything in the house. But this is too much. Bring everything back. That's impossible. You'll have to figure it out yourselves. Ugh. Fine. I'll tell Dad on you.
Feel free. Carrie hung up immediately. I anticipated a call from my ex-husband soon after, and sure enough, my phone rang with his name displayed.
Hello? I heard from Carrie. What have you done? You're aware, right? Everything was mine. Even so, you left, so the ownership transferred to me. What's yours is also mine.
What are you talking about? I never transferred any ownership.
If you want something, you should buy it yourself. That's because you did this on your own. You should take responsibility. It's absurd I have to spend money because of you.
Wow, your pride really knows no bounds. I'm busy, so I'm hanging up now.
Wait a minute.
I noticed my ex was trying to say something more, but I hung up without hesitation. I was in the middle of a spa treatment, after all. In the luxury retirement home I moved into, there's a relaxation room where you can get spa treatments by reservation. I ignored the multiple calls that followed. The next day, I received a call from a payphone. Curious, I answered, and it was Carrie.
You picked up. Why aren't you answering your phone? We're in trouble here without the furniture and appliances. Put everything back.
It's you.
As I said yesterday, if you need those things, buy them yourselves. Dad says he has no money. You took it all, didn't you?
No, why would I? His bank book and card are still at the house.
What? Then why does he say he has no money?
Probably because he has a spending habit. Maybe he has no savings.
What? Then how have we been living?
I was covering living expenses.
Huh? You're not working. What are you talking about?
I don't work, but I had an income from rent.
What do you mean? Rental income? So you were managing properties? Then what was Dad spending his salary on?
Yes, so I could afford to pay for our living expenses. I don't know what Snow spent his salary on. You should ask him directly. Are we done here?
Ah.
Wait.
If you have so much money, then why?
I hung up the phone. They had no idea how they had been living, such foolish people. I felt no sympathy anymore. There's no way they could live on my ex's meager salary alone. Despite knowing his own salary, he seemed to think he was supporting us with it alone, even though his income wouldn't even cover the rent. It was my rental income that made our life possible. Now that we're divorced, their standard of living must have significantly dropped, but that's none of my concern anymore. By now, the real mom, his affair partner, must have moved in, so they should sort out their living situation amongst themselves. Calls from Carrie and my ex continued but gradually became less frequent. As I was getting used to my new life, the lawyer called.
We've successfully filed for damages, and the other party is willing to pay. It should be resolved smoothly.
The fact that my prideful ex-husband agreed without any complaints was slightly surprising, but since the lawyer said so, it must be true. I was happy thinking that this would finally sever our ties.
Thank you. I appreciate your help a bit longer. Of course, let's keep at it.
After hanging up with the lawyer, I felt a bit more upbeat than usual, thinking about taking a swim in the facility's pool. Then the phone rang again. Checking my mobile, I saw my ex-husband's name, appearing for the first time in about a month. Hesitant, but not wanting to stir things up after coming this far, I decided to answer the call.
Hello, it's me. Rent hasn't been withdrawn since last month. I need your help. Help? For rent?
His request was baffling.
You were supposed to handle the rent. Think about our situation without furniture and only essentials, and you're not even paying the rent. I have nothing to do with it anymore. Why should I pay rent for a place I don't live in, especially since we're divorced?
As I said that, he seemed to get instantly infuriated.
What did you say? How much more selfish can you get? This was originally your house. You were the one who told me to leave. The selfishness is on your end. If you keep this up, I won't pay the compensation. Just pay the rent already.
From what standpoint is he even speaking? This is beyond just pride. I felt disillusioned all over again.
Could you discuss the compensation with the lawyer, please? No matter what you say, I'm not paying the rent. Maybe you should check what common sense is. What's with that tone? Who do you think has been supporting you all this time? Well, actually, I have. Huh? I thought I was the one supporting you. So, whatever difficult life you're leading now, I don't care. Goodbye.
I hung up on Snow and headed to the pool. I was looking forward to a nice swim, but he ruined the mood. However, on my way to the pool, I ran into a friend I made at the facility, who was also headed to the pool, and we had a great time swimming together. Maybe I'm simpler than I thought. After coming back from the pool, I saw my phone lighting up with notifications. It seemed there had been a call. Feeling a sense of dread, I checked to see that it was indeed Carrie. As I hesitated whether to call back, my mobile phone started ringing again. Sigh, hello?
What's with that sigh? And what do you mean by not paying the rent?
It was about the rent again. Why should I pay for a house I don't even live in anymore? It seems obvious to anyone.
I've already told Snow, why should I pay it? We're divorced now. I don't live there, and I have no relation to you two. Why should I pay rent for strangers? So, you're just trying to make us suffer, huh? Mom was crying. You sold all our furniture and appliances, and now there's rent overdue, and on top of that, a compensation claim. How much more trouble do you plan to cause us?
Carrie spoke as if they were the victims. I couldn't help but think she's going to have a hard time if she keeps up this mentality.
Do you know what goes around comes around means? The actions you take will always come back to you. How is it that 3 adults can't even pay rent? What was your plan for living? Didn't you think about anything?
Challenged, Carrie began to falter.
Well, that's because Dad said he was a manager and his income was high, so we thought we'd just live off his salary like before. I thought life wouldn't change even if you left and Mom came.
He's a manager. I couldn't help but laugh. My ex-husband, who has never held a job for more than 3 years, a manager. Impossible. It became clear he had been inflating his ego to his daughter with baseless pride.
Don't laugh.
Carrie got defensive. Such a pitiful family. I don't know about the affair partner, but they must share similar values to consider reuniting.
Snow has never been promoted. He's never even been a manager, let alone a department head. What? That's not what I heard. Why don't you face reality for once? Reevaluate your situation, all 3 of you.
After I said that, Carrie hung up with a sob. It sounded like she was crying, but I don't regret what I said because I don't believe I was wrong. Later, the lawyer informed me that my ex had been hesitant about the compensation payment but suddenly agreed and completed the payment. This sudden change in attitude made me suspect something was amiss. The lawyer advised caution, uncertain of what my ex might do next. Though it's unlikely he knows my current whereabouts or could directly confront me, I decided not to answer any more calls from him, now that the compensation issue was resolved. With the divorce finalized and the compensation settled, our business was concluded. After thanking the lawyer, who assured me of their support in case of any future issues, I expressed my gratitude once again and ended the call politely. Despite having resolved everything, a lingering sense of unease and a bad premonition turned into reality. The next day, I received a call from the front desk to my room, saying a family claiming to be my relatives had arrived. It was my ex-husband and Carrie. My bad feeling was confirmed. Since I no longer considered them family, I asked them to be sent away, which they agreed to do, relieving me. I wondered how they found out where I was and what they wanted now, but decided not to dwell on it since I had chosen to cut ties. Later, as I was heading to the facility's restaurant, I happened to glance at the lobby. To my surprise, my ex-husband and Carrie were still there, arguing with the security guard and the front desk staff. Shocked, I instinctively hid. It was inconceivable they were causing trouble for others to this extent. My frustration grew.
We're here because our mom lives here. Don't make us say it again. Exactly. Get our room ready now. And it better be the best one. We're hungry, so prepare some food too. This place serves a full course meal every day, right? Awesome.
Hearing their words pushed me to my limit. Enough already, I said as I approached the lobby.
Mom, you finally came. Come on, take us to our room quickly. We were arranged to live in such a nice place with you. You're finally being useful.
Their attitude had changed 180 degrees, making me feel uneasy. They looked at me with full smiles, the kind that made me uncomfortable for the first time in my life. The front desk staff and security guard apologized to me, looking sorry. However, the ones at fault were this parent and child. Don't apologize. You've done nothing wrong, I told them, and they gave me a kind smile in return.
So, you sold the furniture and didn't pay the rent because of this. I finally understand. No, you got it wrong. There's no place for you here. Please leave.
What are you talking about? You moved here for us, right? Their entitlement irritated me to no end.
That's ridiculous. Stop it. This is my home. If you really want to move in, do the paperwork yourselves.
When I yelled, Carrie and my ex-husband seemed a bit shaken. They had never heard me raise my voice before.
What's got you so mad? Because we came late? To think we bothered to come here, and this is the reception we get. But we'll let it slide this time. Hurry up and show us to our room. I really can't get through to you, can I? All right, I'll show you to your room.
They seemed relieved at my words, completely missing the point I was trying to make.
Could you please call the police?
Right now, I asked the staff. Mentioning the police made them panic instantly.
What do you mean? Police? What are you talking about? I did say I'd show you to your room, didn't I? It's probably at the police station. Lucky you. And if you really want to stay here, come back when you're over 60.
I smiled sweetly, and the front desk staff immediately picked up the phone.
Wait! No need for the police, right? We came here for you.
For me?
When did I ever ask you to come? We couldn't find where you were living, so we hired a detective. And when we heard you were living in such a nice place, we decided to come.
From Carrie's words, it became clear how they found this place. It seemed their only motive was money.
So you're after money, right? Unable to pay a rent of $2,000, unable to fully furnish your home, and from our interactions, you figured I had money and decided to look for me, right?
They fell silent at my direct hit. No, we didn't know the rent was $2,000, and Mom thought living with us in that house meant a luxurious life. She wanted back in, but after seeing the reality, she left.
Carrie! Don't say that! Don't you have any pride?
But, as they started to argue in front of me, I could only watch in disbelief.
Anyway, if you can afford to live here, you should be using that money for us, your family. Since you're rich, you can pay back the loans we took out for the affairs compensation money, right?
Hearing this, everything clicked. They were evicted, life became tough, and they hired a detective with their last dime to find me, discovering I lived in a luxurious retirement home, planning to mooch off me. Assuming I was wealthy, they paid the affairs compensation with borrowed money, intending for me to repay their debts, a pitiful and absurd story. Who could make sense of such a situation? I have nothing left to say to you. We're complete strangers now. The police will be here soon, so just wait. As I said this coldly, they seemed to finally grasp their situation a bit, turning pale and starting to shake.
Okay, I get it. I was wrong. Please, spare us from the police. Let's start over.
I apologize too. I'm sorry. Please forgive us. You could see the disdain in the eyes of the people around us. I felt the same way, devoid of any sympathy for these two hopeless individuals. As they were apologizing profusely to me, the police arrived. The front desk staff and security explained the situation, and I also shared the details with the police, who then took the two away.
No! Not the police! Let go of me! Stop it!
Watching them being led away screaming and yelling, I felt a sense of closure. As I sighed, the front desk staff brought me a warm cup of tea and invited me to sit on a sofa in the lobby to rest. The warm tea tasted incredibly good. Later on, it turned out that my ex-husband and Carrie had been evicted for failing to pay their rent. Moreover, assuming they could live with me in the luxurious retirement home, they had quit their jobs. After being released by the police, they had nowhere to go and were staying in a motel. However, as their meager savings began to dwindle, they hurriedly looked for work and found a live-in job. They were relieved to have found a place to live, but the job was demanding, rife with cliques, and they struggled with interpersonal relationships, barely scraping by on a low salary. As for me, I'm living a life of elegance I wouldn't have experienced had I stayed married. Sometimes I indulge in spa treatments, other times I exercise, or I go out for karaoke with friends, leading a very fulfilling life. There are also plenty of events within the facility, which has led to an increase in my hobbies. Becoming friends with other residents and having more friends has allowed me to lead a luxuriously busy life filled with fun and happiness.
My name is Lucy. I'm 37 years old. David, my husband, who is a year older than me, and I have been married for 12 years. I met David through work. He was an employee at a client company of the firm I worked for. Our relationship deepened through our shared hobby of tennis, and after 2 years of dating, we got married. Even after marriage, I wanted to continue working, but we had difficulty conceiving. Finally, after infertility treatments, I got pregnant with our son in the 7th year of our marriage, which led me to quit my job. Now, I am a mother of one, and despite the challenges, I enjoy my daily life. Originally, I planned to return to work after giving birth to our son, Mark. However, my husband said, "I can support Lucy and Mark with my salary alone. You don't need to work, right? Mark would be happier with Lucy around, and when things get tough, we can rely on my parents." Appreciating his words, I decided to quit my job. Indeed, parenting was much harder than I expected. I often suffered from sleep deprivation, trying to match the erratic sleep schedule of Mark. Putting myself last, I centered my life around Mark. It was tough, but the joy of watching Mark grow up close outweighed everything. I was deeply grateful for David for allowing me to spend my days like this. As time passed, and Mark started kindergarten last year, David's family helped us purchase a new apartment with a loan. We were about to give up on it because it was way over our budget, but their offer of support was a huge relief. David's family runs a large company. They are wealthy. Susan, my mother-in-law, didn't quite approve of our marriage. She doted on David, her only child and son, and openly said during family meetings, "I wish David had married someone more beautiful, from a better family, and more charming." She often questioned me about my alma mater, my father's job, and what I was doing, making it feel more like an interview than a family meeting. Luckily, her not liking me much meant that the topic of us living together never came up. After Mark was born, the harshness towards me lessened, and we, the three of us, lived happily without much interference from my in-laws. Or so I thought. I was blissfully unaware. I never doubted David's love for me, and with such an adorable son, I couldn't imagine David having an affair. Never in my wildest dreams did I think something like this, straight out of a manga or drama, would happen to me. I noticed something amiss over a trivial matter. One day, while transferring clothes from the laundry basket to the washing machine, I found foundation on David's shirt. Not just that, it had a distinct smell of women's perfume. He had said he'd be late due to work the day before, so I thought maybe he had gone to a club for a business gathering. I always noticed the same perfume scent when he came home late. The distinctive scent of the perfume made it easy to recognize. Curious, I casually asked David, "Why does your shirt always smell like the same perfume?" "It's the favorite perfume of a female staff member my boss likes. She often sits next to me, so the scent probably transfers." I felt something was off, but didn't probe further. Then, one day, I stumbled upon decisive evidence. David came home late again, saying he had to work overtime, and immediately went to take a shower. I was taking his clothes to the laundry room when I saw his phone open with a new message visible. The message said, "I'm so glad we could spend time together again today. It was fun. Let's make sure Lucy doesn't find out. Love you. Remember to play with Mark so it doesn't raise suspicions." Accompanied by numerous heart emojis. In that moment, my suspicions turned into certainty. David takes long showers, so once he's in, he doesn't come out immediately. My head was spinning, and my hands were shaking, but I managed to take a photo of the message exchange to keep as evidence. David was wrong to have an affair despite having a family, and the woman knew he was married with a child, yet carried on regardless. I couldn't comprehend people who engage in affairs. Anger and disgust towards them both surged within me. It was common knowledge that David's family was wealthy. He worked at a company owned by his father, Jim, and everyone expected him to be the next president. Was this woman in it for David's money? Whether it was serious or just a fling, I couldn't forgive David for having an affair while having me and Mark in his life. However, Mark is only 5, and I am a housewife. We have decades of mortgage payments left on the apartment we just bought. It was clear that I couldn't take immediate action upon learning of David's affair. Despite being deeply shocked, I didn't show my turmoil and prepared breakfast as usual the next morning, sending David off with Mark.
"Dad, have a good day,"
Mark said, innocently smiling. David patted Mark's head and said, "Let's play together when I get back, Mark." Then turned to me. "Thanks for the send-off. I'll work hard for the family," and left the house. His words felt insincere. Having an affair, yet acting like nothing's wrong. At the moment, I discovered the affair. My love for David completely faded. But right now, there's nothing I can do. After dropping Mark at kindergarten, I would return home and ponder what to do next. I could confront David about the affair any time, but now wasn't the right time. Mark is still young and adores his father. As a stay-at-home mom, handling life alone with Mark post-divorce seemed realistically challenging. My parents are too old and far away to rely on. I regretted quitting my job. Taking David's words at face value when he said he'd inherit his family business and that I could focus on taking care of Mark and the household. It would have been wiser to keep working for contingencies. Days of conflict continued. Wondering what choice to make. Could I deprive Mark of his father for my sake? He loves David so much. Whenever I thought of holding back from divorce, seeing the messages between David and his mistress reinforced my decision to go through with it. The other woman appeared to be in her early 20s. Their messages included lewd photos and conversations suggestive of a physical relationship. David, infatuated with someone over a decade younger, was no longer the husband I knew. David had no idea I knew about his affair. I somehow managed to keep calm daily without letting him know. On days he met his mistress and came back, he would bring gifts, probably out of guilt. Then he'd play the good father with Mark, which infuriated me even more. Before I knew about the affair, I genuinely loved watching David laugh and play with Mark. After finding out, my feelings cooled surprisingly quickly. Then one day, out of the blue, and not on a special occasion like my birthday or our anniversary, David gave me a present. "What's this all of a sudden? This necklace looks expensive."
"To show my gratitude,"
he said cheerfully,
"for all the hard work with the house and Mark. Please, take it."
That night, I checked his phone and discovered that the necklace was meant for his mistress, who rejected it, calling it old-fashioned. Knowing it was a returned gift from his mistress, I threw it away as soon as David left for work, despite it being blameless. Half a year since the affair came to light, there was no sign of him stopping. He continued to bring home gifts after meeting his mistress and played happily with Mark. If he voluntarily helped with Mark or household chores, it meant he had met her that day. The simplicity of his actions was astounding. I didn't want Mark touched by the same hands that were involved in an affair, but Mark looked so happy when David was in a good mood. All I could do was endure. That's what I thought. Even in such times, I was steadily preparing for divorce. I started studying for various qualifications to ensure a smooth re-entry into the workforce post-divorce. I thought it would be difficult for a woman in her late 30s and a single mother to find a job otherwise. Ironically, having a divorce as a goal made my days busy and fulfilling. Then, one late night, my mobile phone rang suddenly. It was an unknown number. Startled by the ringtone, I initially ignored the call, but when it rang again from the same number, I reluctantly answered. "Hello? Who is this?" I asked.
"Sorry to call so late at night. This is the New York City Police. Is this Lucy's number?"
A male voice inquired. Shocked by the mention of the police, I was instantly alert. "Yes, this is Lucy. What can I do for the police?" I asked apprehensively.
"Is David your husband?"
"Yes."
"David has been in a car accident and is currently undergoing emergency surgery at the hospital. Can you come to the hospital immediately?"
he said. David had been in a serious car accident. "Understood. I'll be there right away," I replied, trying to keep calm as I woke up Mark and headed to the hospital the officer had mentioned. In the hospital room, David, having just undergone surgery, lay bandaged in various places. Beside him, presumably his mistress, a woman sat crying, her arm bandaged. Lost for words in this chaotic scene, the doctor who performed the surgery entered the room.
"David is not in life-threatening condition, but he has multiple complex fractures, so it will take a considerable time to return to normal life,"
he explained. After the doctor left, the young woman approached me. Hi, I'm Karen, David's junior at work." She introduced herself in a sweet tone. I didn't respond to the woman, just nodded slightly. David was conscious and kept awkwardly making excuses.
"I was just having dinner with Karen after work, but we got into a bit of a fight on the way back. She suddenly tried to get out in the middle of the road, and when I turned to stop her, this happened. I'm really sorry for the trouble,"
he said. Clearly, he intended not to mention that she was his mistress. Just as I was about to retort, the door to the hospital room burst open and my in-laws rushed in, looking frantic. Jim, already informed by someone from the company, walked up to my husband and slapped him hard on the cheek.
"Idiot! What the hell are you doing?"
He shouted in anger. Susan tried to calm him down, but Jim's fury didn't subside. Mark was taken outside the room by Jim's secretary as soon as they entered.
"Who is this woman? You've been out all night with her instead of being at home. The other party in the accident is the son of a familiar business associate. This is what happens when you fool around with young women,"
Jim yelled.
"I'm sorry, Dad, but I just had surgery,"
David muttered weakly. Ignoring David, my in-laws turned to me.
"Lucy, we are truly sorry for our son's behavior."
They both apologized deeply. "There's no need to apologize," I said. Interrupting me, they continued.
"We were wrong in our upbringing. We spoiled him for being an only child. It's our fault he turned out to be such an irresponsible man."
Jim apologized profusely. I decided to tell them the truth. I've known for over 6 months that David was having an affair. Ignoring David's shocked,
"What? Why?"
I continued. Mark is still young, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. We just received your support for the apartment, so divorce wasn't an option. I thought enduring this alone would suffice, but I never expected things to turn out this way. Jim fell silent for a while, then said,
"It's late. Go home with Mark for now. We'd like to talk more tomorrow after Mark goes to kindergarten, if that's okay."
I agreed. The next day, I visited David's hospital room with his clothes and other items. "Oh, isn't your girlfriend here today?" I asked sarcastically. David laughed.
"After she left yesterday, she messaged me she was going back to her parents' home, and I haven't been able to contact her since. She seemed scared of Dad's outburst. Young women are unreliable. Lucy, you're the one for me."
He was clearly trying to appease me. Realizing his approach wasn't working, he said earnestly,
"I'm truly sorry. It was just a fling. Please forgive me."
But I ignored all his words. "I'll leave these things here," I said, and left the room. He didn't seem to realize that he had admitted to the affair. Such a foolish man. Later, when it was time for my meeting with my in-laws, they arrived at our house and again apologized.
"We're deeply sorry for our son's unforgivable actions."
Then Jim began to speak.
"After hearing about the accident, we thought a lot about Lucy and Mark. We also immediately investigated the woman involved with David. It turns out she's a receptionist at a client company David was dealing with. They've been in a relationship for over 3 years. Lucy, you might not want to hear this, but I thought you should know."
Over 3 years. I had no idea it had been going on for that long. He started the affair when Mark was just 2 years old. I couldn't forgive him for cheating even though he had such a cute son.
"Now, let's get to the main point. We came here today to hear what you really want, Lucy,"
Jim said. When asked, I clearly stated, "I've been thinking about divorcing David." My in-laws nodded in agreement, as if they expected my answer.
"Lucy's decision is understandable. We've overlooked too much because he's our son, but his work performance and reputation at the company are poor. He's not fit to take over the business. Moreover, this accident has ruined an important business relationship. The damage is incalculable. If we left the company to him, it would cause discontent among the other employees. I consider them a part of my family too, so I've decided not to let him inherit the company,"
Jim declared. I replied, "That's Jim's decision. I have nothing to say about it." But internally, I didn't care what happened to my soon-to-be ex-husband. Jim then offered,
As a token of our apology, we have arranged a new apartment for Lucy and Mark. We know it's not much, but please accept it as an apology. And of course, we'll provide adequate compensation.
He handed me the contract for an apartment spacious enough for Mark and me. It was already in my name. It was a very genuine offer, so I gratefully accepted. Thank you very much. We'll make it our new home. Unaware of this conversation, David was staring blankly out of the hospital room window. When Mark and I entered his room, Mark ran to him concerned.
Dad, are you okay? Does it hurt? Do you have to go to work?
I'm on leave from work now, but I'll be home soon. Until then, listen to Mom and be a good boy.
David responded. He seemed oblivious to the seriousness of the situation. I asked him about the woman he hadn't seen since the accident. By the way, I haven't seen that woman since that day, I said. David hugged Mark and replied,
That woman. It was just a fling, so it's fine. All I need is Mark and Lucy.
I was amazed at how conveniently he returned to the family once the woman left him. I couldn't help but laugh at his absurdity. My laughter made David think he was forgiven. He too smiled, seemingly in a good mood. A month later, with my in-laws looking after Mark, I accompanied David for his discharge from the hospital, fulfilling my last duty as his wife. I've taken care of various procedures during your hospitalization. The car's been scrapped, and the settlement with the other party's insurance company is done, I informed him.
Typical Lucy. I'm proud to have you as my wife. Thank you,
he replied.
The house looks tidier. Have you gotten rid of a lot of stuff? There's nothing like being home,
David observed, likely noticing that mine and Mark's belongings had been packed. Right on cue, the doorbell rang.
Moving company!
I called out and opened the door. As the movers entered, David finally seemed to realize something was amiss.
Hey, what's this about?
He asked me. It's obvious, isn't it? They're movers, I replied.
Why are movers here?
Because we're moving.
Wait a minute,
David said, confused. I've waited more than enough, I responded coldly. When I found out about your affair, I was waiting all this time for you to stop and come back, I said.
I thought you had forgiven me,
David said, bewildered, as I directed the movers. Leave all the men's items here. I turned back to him. Forgive you? That's out of the question. The thought of a man who cheats while having a family disgusts me. Once you knew she left you, you conveniently said, "You're the only one for me. I'm getting a divorce. Everything else has been left to my lawyer," I stated clearly. I left the house with the movers. Ignoring David's shouts behind me, I picked up Mark from my in-laws and headed to our new home. I later heard that David had become a laughingstock at his father's company, losing any chance of taking over. The divorce was finalized smoothly, and I received a substantial settlement. David paid a hefty price for his affair and accident, losing not just his wife, but the respect of his parents. But I don't care about such a man anymore. As for me, I've recently secured a new job. The qualifications I studied for came in handy. I'm glad I acted with careful planning. Now, I look forward to living a happy life with Mark.
Stop nagging about housework and do your job.
My husband's harsh words in response to my simple requests. All I wanted was to walk through life together as a couple. If this is it, what's the point of being married? In the midst of my despair, my husband suddenly changed. Maybe this could lead to the marital life I've always dreamed of, but it turned out to be wishful thinking on my part. I should never have trusted his words. My name is Amy Watson. I'm 43 years old. I met Harry on a business trip a few years ago, and now we're married, living together. We had a long-distance relationship, requiring flights to see each other. Both busy with work, we rarely met, but after several years we managed to marry.
I'll definitely make you happy.
I'll never forget his proposal. I never thought I'd marry such a wonderful man. Back then, he was very charming and popular with women. I might be biased, but I was thrilled he chose me. Given the distance, I moved to live with him, starting our married life. However, I couldn't quit my job, so I transferred to another branch, because frankly, my husband didn't earn much. Whether it was his company's low pay or his lack of promotions, his salary was just too low. If I quit my job, we couldn't live. Initially, my husband wanted me to be a housewife, but gradually he stopped commenting on my work as he faced reality. Years later, this hasn't changed. We both work to barely make ends meet. But a significant event changed our lives. It was my husband's attitude. Initially kind, he gradually revealed his true self over time. It started with small things, not clearing the dishes after meals. "Hey, could you put away the dishes after eating?"
Sorry.
He'd agree when I asked, but soon forget. "Is it okay to leave the dishes?"
Yes.
We had planned to share household chores, but once married, he hardly did any, always finding excuses. I thought he must be tired, so I didn't press too much about chores. But honestly, he finishes work earlier than me and seems to have it easy. He even said his job was simple. Conversely, my job is demanding and keeps me busy every day. Handling both work and household chores is tough. I thought he could help me a bit more. Finally reaching my limit, I decided to have a serious talk with him. "Hey, about the housework, could you help out a bit more? I'm getting tired too." Then he suddenly changed his expression. It was clear he was angry.
"All right, I got it,"
he said, his voice filled with anger. At that time I didn't mention it, but I wondered why he was so upset. Since that day, my husband's attitude has drastically changed. The reason is clear. It's because I asked him to help with the housework. Looking back, I guess he only sees me as a convenient housekeeper. One day, when I returned home from work as usual, the house was filled with the smell of alcohol. Feeling disgusted, I went to the living room. Opening the door, I found my husband lying on the sofa, surrounded by empty alcohol cans. He probably didn't go to work. "Hey, what's wrong? Are you okay?" I approached my drunken husband and asked. He opened his eyes, glaring sharply at me.
You're so annoying."
"Annoying?" he answered irritably and closed his eyes again. But seeing him so lost in alcohol, I couldn't help but worry. Did he fall into some kind of mental illness without me knowing? Or did he turn to alcohol? "Hey, what's with all this alcohol?" To this question, he opened his eyes again and said,
"That's why I'm telling you to shut up. What I do is none of your business."
"But..." As I tried to argue, he got up from the sofa and started yelling at me. Slurring his words, he hurled insults at me and then went back to his room. Why do I have to be spoken to like this just for being concerned? Alone in the living room, I sat for a while and then cleaned up the empty cans and snack bags he had left behind. Then one day, something else happened. It seemed like a deliberate act of harassment against me. Laundry and dishes were intentionally scattered around. Many dishes were broken, some of which were my favorites. After that incident, I knew immediately it was my husband's doing. I wanted to talk to him, but he seemed to be out. Probably drinking, as his work should have ended by then. So he deliberately came home just to mess up the room. How sinister. I quickly called him, but he didn't answer. Reluctantly, I sent a text and got a reply immediately. Maybe he thought I'd talked too much over the phone. The text was brief. It read, "I'm not coming home tonight." No destination, no explanation of what he was doing. So, what should I do? Should I just stay quiet and obey what he says? Is it all my fault? I feel sad, helpless. I did the right thing, and yet, what should I have done? Thinking this, I cleaned up the mess scattered around the room. Looking back, I noticed scratches on the floor. I'll probably remember this day whenever I see them. The next day, my husband returned home as he said he would. His steps were unsteady, and he reeked of alcohol. "Hey, what were you doing? I was worried about you." Frustrated by his lack of greeting, I couldn't help but ask in an angry tone. To that, my husband replied,
"What I do is none of your business."
"We're married. It is my business." Upset by his attitude, I pressed further, but he just glared at me and went back to his room. I couldn't help but sigh. Was the man I married always this difficult? Where did things go wrong? Thinking about it made me cry uncontrollably. But I'm not giving up. If I keep trying, maybe he'll understand what I'm thinking. Maybe he'll spend the weekends with me. Maybe help with chores. I won't ask for much. Just want him to be in a better mood. Holding on to that hope, I keep talking to him. "How was work today? Tough? Dinner is pot au feu." But his response wasn't good. Ignoring me was the norm. He often clicked his tongue and glared at me. It seemed impossible to mend our relationship with him acting like this. Lately, he wouldn't even eat the meals I prepared. I started questioning our relationship. Should I continue this marriage? Would it be better to let him have his freedom? These thoughts only brought negativity. As a last resort, I made a plea to my husband. "Please, don't ignore me." To my surprise, he suddenly apologized.
"Sorry."
I was stunned. I never expected him to apologize. And then,
"I'll start helping with the housework."
"Really?"
"I've been wrong about a lot of things."
Saying that, he actually patted my head. It had been years since he did that. Skeptically, I thought it odd for him to suddenly change and apologize. Given his past actions, it was hard not to doubt. But I chose to believe he had a change of heart and felt overjoyed. After that, he really did help with chores. Laundry, cooking, cleaning. Sometimes he'd finish everything before I got home. I never knew he could cook. Sitting across from a smiling husband, we enjoyed our meals together. He also became more invested in his work. He started doing overtime he never did before, and studying for qualifications, often staying late at the office. "How's work going recently?"
It's going well,"
he said with a smile. We were spending more time together, and it felt like we were newlyweds again. But there was one thing that bothered me. He said he was working overtime, but there was no extra pay. It's hard to say without prior experience, but this could indicate a serious issue with his work environment. "Hey, don't you get paid for overtime?" When I asked, he said,
"Oh, it's voluntary study overtime. I haven't applied for it."
"I see." Financially, I wished he would apply for overtime pay, but maybe he felt hesitant. I don't know much about his company, so it wasn't my place to say. For now, I decided to support his decision. However, I would later also regret accepting this change so easily. One day, I was assigned to a business trip. I had left home for a day before, but this time it would be for a week. I felt excited but also nervous and lonely. When I told my husband about the trip, his reaction was unexpected.
"A business trip? How many days?"
Usually he showed little interest in my trips and never asked how long I'd be away. But this time, he seemed genuinely interested and even asked about the duration. I thought, maybe he's really changed and started to value our family. It made me feel glad I married him. From the week after next for a week."
"Okay, the week after next."
he said and started looking at his calendar on his mobile phone. I didn't know the details, but it seemed his schedule had become busier. Maybe he was getting more work or becoming more relied upon at his job.
Got it. The week after next. Take care.
Yeah, thanks. That was our conversation. Then, on the morning of the departure, I informed my newly reformed husband about various household things, the supermarket where you can buy cheap groceries, how to iron clothes. I also told him where to find small daily necessities so he wouldn't struggle. Well, I'm off. Call me if you need anything.
Thanks.
With that, I left for my business trip. That night, after finishing work and returning to my hotel, I surprisingly received a message from my husband.
How's work?
Good, it's going smoothly. After a trivial exchange, I texted goodnight and closed my mobile phone. I wondered how he was doing, if he was feeling lonely. Thinking about this, I began preparing for the next day's work. About a week later, my job ended successfully and I was ready to return home. Luckily, I finished a day earlier than planned. If no urgent work came up, I would have tomorrow off. On my way home, feeling happy, I decided to stop by the supermarket to cook dinner. What to make? Curry? Stew? That's when I remembered we might be out of oil. And then I realized I hadn't told my husband I was coming home early. Would he be shocked if I returned suddenly? I messaged him to check if we had oil and also mentioned I was coming home early from my business trip. But even after I finished shopping, there was no response from him. Could he be at work? Maybe working overtime again? Not wanting to disturb him, I stopped myself from sending another message and queued at the checkout. It's always good to have extra oil, after all. On my way home from the store, my husband called.
Hey, are you on your way home now? Where are you?
He sounded panicked. Was something wrong? Yeah, I'm in the apartment elevator now. When I told him that, he hung up without saying anything else. What was going on? Worried, I hurried to our apartment. I'm home. Harry, are you okay? No response. Harry! As I was taking off my shoes to enter, my husband came from the living room in a rush and collapsed. Are you okay?
I'm in pain. Call an ambulance,
he said, clutching my hand. I immediately grabbed my mobile phone and called an ambulance. The ambulance arrived within minutes. I led the paramedics into our apartment and they started attending to my husband. Was he going to be okay? What would happen to him? As I was anxiously watching, I noticed something. There was an unfamiliar woman's bag. Certainly not the paramedic's bag. Not mine either. I felt a lump in my throat. Then, looking towards the living room window, I saw unfamiliar women's underwear hanging there. Could my husband be having an affair? Thinking back, his panicked reaction when I called was definitely strange. Was he trying to hide his affair? I tentatively looked around the apartment, pretending to gather things from my husband's hospital stay to avoid suspicion. Living room, bathroom, kitchen, but nothing else. The bag was there, so unless the woman had escaped out of the window, she must still be here. Finally, I went to the shower room, and to my surprise, the light was on and I saw a shadow. I opened the door and looked at the bathtub. I couldn't believe what was happening in front of me and wanted to look away. The realization that my suspicions were true was something I didn't want to think about. I wish I had been wrong about the bag and the underwear. I went back to the entrance, and then this conversation happened with the paramedics.
Your family, right? Please come with us.
Sorry, my mistake.
What?
The paramedic sounded surprised at my response. My husband also seemed shocked, ignoring them. I brought the woman from the shower room to the entrance. This woman is family, so she'll come along. Wait a minute! The woman was flustered as I said this. The husband, clearly surprised, suddenly sat up with effort.
You what?
The paramedics calmed my agitated husband. Actually, this man seems fine. What do you think?
Well, yes, his condition doesn't seem bad.
Eventually, it was decided that my husband didn't need emergency care, and if he felt worse, he should go to the hospital. The room fell silent after the paramedics left. So what's going on here? I sat my husband and the woman down in front of me and demanded an explanation. At first, they were silent, looking uncomfortable, but they gave up as I silently waited. My husband began to speak. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. This girl is a junior from work. We're just close, but nothing inappropriate happened. After his words, the junior spoke up. That's right, we were just having a meeting. Nothing inappropriate. To claim such things now, do you need to take a bath and hang your underwear for a meeting? What's going on? I pointed to the underwear hanging in the living room. The two exchanged looks, realizing their mistake. The truth was already clear. If you have time to make up excuses, just tell me the truth. Pressing them further, my husband confessed everything. I'm really sorry. Sorry isn't enough. Was all the overtime a lie? It turned out my husband and his junior became involved after we got married. He started the affair because I nagged about housework. But then the junior complimented him on being a man who could do housework, so he tried harder. The increased overtime was just to meet her. I noticed the junior looking almost triumphant. That's why there was no overtime pay. He wasn't even trying to get any qualifications. It was all just talk. I understand what you're thinking. Let's just get divorced. Please be with that woman. I was so dismayed that I proposed divorce. It wasn't a threat. I couldn't forgive the deception. But my husband wouldn't agree. Divorce isn't the answer, he protested. To top it all off, he said, if you had properly told me you were coming home, this wouldn't have happened. Yeah, coming back suddenly is just unfair, the junior added. Had I been fooled by my husband's act all this time? Thinking about it made me feel pathetic. Amy, Harry is showing remorse, right? His affair partner was also desperately trying to calm me down. You don't really want a divorce, do you? You're just pushing the blame for your affair onto me. Let's just end this. Let's divorce. No, it's not like that. The junior avoided my gaze, clearly uncomfortable. Look at her sulking. You two should live happily together. Sulking? She tried to argue, but I cut her off. Yes, sulking. Her expression became even more sullen. Look, she seems to be repenting too. Shut up! Nothing you say will make me forgive you. As I shouted, both of them shrunk back. What do we do from now on? They need to reflect on what they have done and said. Afterward, I hired a lawyer to start preparing for the divorce and claim compensation for the divorce trial. Throughout, there was no contact from my husband. Eventually, my in-laws reached out, asking what had happened. I told them everything and they apologized and agreed to help with the divorce. Eventually, my husband, looking exhausted, agreed to a consensual divorce after speaking with the in-laws. I made sure to claim compensation from the junior as well. She was reluctant at first but ultimately complied with my request. I demanded a lump sum payment because I thought she might try to escape her responsibility. After the divorce, since my husband and the junior were from the same company, it quickly became known they had an affair. They were treated coldly by their colleagues and lost their place at the company. They also became targets of gossip and the talk even reached their clients. Unable to handle the situation, both ended up leaving the company. I don't know if they married, but they must be struggling financially after paying me the compensation. I imagine them arguing over money issues. I moved to a new apartment shortly after. It's cheaper than my previous one, but much more comfortable. I remembered that I chose the old apartment based on my husband's preferences. Returning to my apartment, I sighed in relief that it was all over. All right. Since the divorce, I've been more focused on work and my performance has improved, leading to a promotion. I thought the divorce was a rash decision made in anger, but now I'm happy it's all over. It feels like a weight has been lifted. With these thoughts, I sipped my favorite tea, rejuvenating myself for tomorrow.
My name is Mina, I love how every season is perfect for enjoying food. I'd say as I ate season after season, now at 36, I've grown quite a bit. Aiming for a model's figure? Well, not exactly, but I do wish to get back to the slim shape I had in my 20s. Today, I want to share a dramatic experience from my 20s. Please listen to my story. It happened a decade ago. Back then, I was a brand new wife, married to Ern, who was 2 years my senior. Being older, he often took the role of teaching me things. And why was that? Well, I had only part-time job experience, no experience living alone, and was quite naive about the world. I was working part-time when I started dating my boss, Ern, and we soon married, making me a clueless homemaker. My parents both worked, so I could handle household chores, but I was clueless about things like activating gas services after moving, or understanding security deposit and key money systems. I relied heavily on my husband for these. At work, I was learning from my husband, and at home, he was teaching me things too. This, I believe, was our downfall. He began to comment on every little thing. For instance, if I finished chores and watched TV, he'd say, "Didn't you stretch out the laundry properly? It looks wrinkled." If I cooked, he'd complain, "Carrots again? Using the same ingredient 2 days in a row isn't good." And while vacuuming, he'd critique, "You shouldn't stretch the cord so much." His remarks started to feel like he had too many personal rules. At first, I thought maybe he was right about the laundry or getting tired of the same ingredients. I listened to him. But then he'd find something new to criticize. When I bought new clothes with my savings, he scolded, "Why do you need new clothes when you're just at home? Don't be extravagant." Though I bought it with my own savings. If I went shopping in shabby clothes, he'd surely say, "That's embarrassing." I couldn't win. What did he expect me to do? To him, it might have felt like he was just teaching me, but he had turned into a constant nag. Yet he did nothing himself. He would just tell me what to do without lifting a finger. Naturally, he never did any housework. He had lived alone and could obviously handle chores, given his complaints about mine. But he would insist, "I'm tired from working all day. I don't want to work at home, too. You're the homemaker, so let's divide the roles." And he never helped. Initially, I thought there was some reason in my husband's words. I take care of the house. In exchange, he earns the living expenses. It seemed like a fair division of labor. Little did I know just how much he would nag. Gradually, I couldn't help but think, if you have so many complaints, why don't you do it yourself? I thought about working part-time, to be on equal footing, and discussed it with him, but he immediately dismissed the idea. When I asked why, his answer was shocking. "What's gotten into you, wanting to work so much? You're not planning to cheat, are you?" he said. What kind of reasoning is that? If he's that worried about someone else taking me away, I'd wish he'd cherish me more daily. But to him, all this was supposedly for my sake. And he felt he was protecting me, keeping me safe from the dangers of the outside world by not letting me work part-time. But honestly, such a roundabout protection is hardly appreciated. I'd rather have a token of appreciation like some fancy rusts sent my way. I know I'm not unloved, but there's a lack of kindness, a lack of consideration. Gradually, I started feeling resentful towards my husband. Then one day, "Mina, why didn't you wake me up?" he erupted, in his pajamas and bed hair, completely losing his dignity. "Huh? You never asked me to wake you up, and you always set an alarm because the time you need to get up varies depending on your work schedule. You can wake up on your own." "I forgot to set the alarm? It's your fault I overslept." "Huh?" I couldn't help but respond in disbelief. It's absurd to blame me for his oversleeping because he forgot to set his daily alarm. Especially since I wasn't even informed about what time he needed to wake up today. "Seriously, you're so inconsiderate. I wanted a leisurely morning, and now I have to rush to work. Be more careful from now on." I wish he'd just sleep forever. Oblivious to my growing irritation, he moved around noisily, constantly complaining, hastily washed his face, and left for work, nearly still in bed hair. It's so infuriating. Maybe for dinner tonight, I'll make everything he dislikes. Even as I harbored such ill thoughts, I diligently prepared dinner and waited for my husband that night. When he returned, I greeted him with the usual, "Welcome back," only to be angrily rebuked.
Enough is enough.
Confused, I asked what happened, and it turned out he forgot something important due to his oversleeping in the morning.
I needed those documents for a meeting, and I forgot them because I overslept. It's your fault for not waking me up. One disaster after another.
But aren't I the one experiencing the real disaster here? I'm being scolded for something I didn't do. However, I know from experience that arguing back only leads to more anger. I know it well from past experience. Recently, I bought a bunch of new sponges for the bathtub because the old ones were worn out, and he scolded me for unnecessary spending. When I explained, I bought them in bulk because they were on sale and will need them eventually, he lectured me even louder.
Don't make excuses. Only buy what's necessary in the necessary amount.
Arguing back is like pouring oil on fire, only increasing the discomfort. So for my own peace of mind, I stayed silent. After all, next week, we're visiting the in-laws' house for the first time since our marriage. It's for a Thanksgiving greeting. Just the thought of going to the unfamiliar in-laws' house is depressing. I want to lighten my mood as much as possible before that. I kept telling myself, endure it, Mina, just endure. And finally, the day of visiting the in-laws' house arrived. My husband was in a good mood that day, and while there were the usual naggings, it didn't escalate into anything serious. He was smiling so much, I found it somewhat eerie. Is he that happy to visit the in-laws' house? But maybe I should have sensed danger in my husband's behavior. When relatives gathered in the living room, the incident happened.
Ern, how's married life? Must be the happiest time, right?
A tipsy relative asked him.
Well, it's quite challenging,
my husband replied.
Can't understand your wife's feelings, huh? Ah, to be young. No, it's different. She's really naive, always wasting money and causing me trouble. What?
I was shocked to hear this exchange from a distance, and my husband, noticing me, looked over with a mocking smile.
While we're at it, she just recently bought a ridiculous amount of cleaning supplies for no reason. She makes excuses, saying they're consumables, and it's better to buy in bulk. Well, isn't that okay? She's going to use them, right? No, it's not just that. Even her cooking has issues, like using the same vegetables 2 days in a row. She probably buys groceries in bulk, without considering expiration dates. And she buys clothes unnecessarily, even though she doesn't work. Vegetables are often sold in bags, and, every couple has their issues.
I almost laughed at how the relative was trying to wrap up the conversation safely, realizing that my husband was being a bit unreasonable.
No, you don't get it, Uncle. It's not just that. She's causing me trouble with her wasteful spending and naivety. Right, Mina? You can't do anything. You're inconsiderate, sloppy with chores, and have no sense of money.
I was startled when he suddenly turned the conversation to me. I was irritated by his smug face. I admit I'm naive, but I don't recall being wasteful. I bought the clothes with my own savings, and the cleaning supplies were necessary. It seemed the relatives understood this too. I wasn't the strange one here. My husband, who still blames me for oversleeping, seemed to want to embarrass me in front of everyone as revenge. He wanted to show off.
Look how I am taking care of my incapable wife. What a great husband I am.
Maintaining his false dignity at home and now trying to display it outside. Ugh, how infuriating.
That's right, everyone. Please help educate my wife. Listen, Mina, if you can't keep the food budget under $50 a month, we'll divorce. How about that? Try it starting this month.
Huh? Everyone, including me, looked at him as if he'd lost his mind. Living alone, maybe you could manage a $50 monthly food budget? Barely. I'm good at household management, and I've already been saving a lot on food expenses. My husband just doesn't notice. But to live on $50 for 2 people a month, and to use divorce as a condition? He must think I dread divorce and desperately try to make $50 dinners. He looked at me with a smug, victorious smile. Maybe he thinks I'll come begging to him. Well, he's got nerve. I don't particularly care about divorce, but I'm not one to back down from a challenge. Got it. Be ready when we get home, I said with a smile. 2 days later, back from the in-laws' house, our usual life resumed. My husband sneered. Now, let's see if you can manage with a $50 food budget starting today. If you want to apologize, now's the time. I can do this. That day, I made curry. It was the usual richly filled curry, so my husband somewhat triumphantly said, Hey, starting with this on our first day, $50 will be tough. You really don't think things through. The next day, I served curry again. He remarked, The same menu 2 days in a row? Isn't that a bit sneaky? Well, fine. If I don't let this slide, you'll end up divorced. I won't make a rule against repeated menus. The following day, again, it was curry. Eating the menu served despite complaining, he now had to accept the repeated meals because of the rule he made. But today, after taking a bite, he asked, Hey, isn't this diluted? Diluted? Of course. Huh? Every day, I add a little water and keep simmering it. I call it infinite curry. It's gradually becoming curry-flavored water, a special saving dish. What? You're kidding. I thought something was off. Yesterday it was still good, but today it's way too watery. No one said curry with added water is off limits. If you don't like it, don't eat it. But then make your own meals. Remember, it's your rule. The food budget stays under $50 a month or else divorce, right? Seemingly not wanting to divorce, my husband silently continued eating the infinite curry. A week or so of infinite curry later, when the pot was finally empty, he was visibly relieved. The next morning he smirked. What will you feed me today? Apologize now if you want. I smiled back. Look forward to it. I'll put extra effort into it. That night, what awaited my husband was a mountain of lettuce on a plate and a bottle of salt. Huh? After a small exclamation, he alternated between staring at the lettuce and me in silence. Here's your dinner. I revived it with water. There's plenty more, so feel free to eat as much lettuce as you like. You're joking, right? If you don't like it, feel free to serve an expensive dinner and go for that divorce. No. Around this time, I began to use the word divorce to intimidate my husband. It was a reversal of our roles. Although he was domineering, I knew well that my husband loved me. He just wanted to be the one in charge. Even the incident at the in-laws' house was likely just his way of trying to embarrass me a little. His repeated offers for me to apologize suggested he wasn't serious about divorcing. That's why I went along with his unreasonable demands, confident that I could turn the tables. But seeing such a bossy person silently eating lettuce, almost in tears, was amusing. Looks like lettuce again tomorrow. With that thought, I continued serving lettuce for about 4 days. However, realizing that the daily fiber overload was upsetting his stomach, I decided not to keep it up for a week. I'm not a monster, after all. Since he had a troubled stomach, why not make something gentle for it? That evening, dinner became soup and rice, mostly liquid. I wondered if he would complain, but this time he gratefully ate the rice, saying, Ah, rice. It seems the modest lettuce lifestyle had humbled him, almost like a monk. Excellent. Notably, my husband, who had gained some weight after marriage, seemed to be slimming down. Taking care of my husband's health, what a good wife I am, or so I joked to myself. After nearly a week of soup life, Please, just a bit more nutrition in the meals, he pleaded. I didn't remember using mind control just by cooking, but it seems food is indeed important to humans. Gradually, my husband had started speaking politely to me. Perhaps because every time he argued, I'd retort with, Then it's divorce. Really, he flaunted the threat of divorce, but when faced with the possibility, he became fearful. How pitiful. Something with more nutrients. Okay, we've been at this for a while now, so fine. I'll indulge your whim. Still within the $50 budget, though. Thank you. That night, I served him salt, water, and beef fat. The beef fat was free from the supermarket's meat section. The water was fresh from our tap, directly from the waterworks, and since everything else was virtually free, I chose rock salt for its quality. It's rich in magnesium, calcium, and potassium. Nutritionally wonderful. Here you go, the nutrients you asked for, I said with a smile.
What? This isn't even cooking anymore.
You said to limit the food budget to $50, but you never specified it had to be cooking. Lettuce isn't really cooking either, right? It's no different.
But this is quite a stretch.
So let's divorce then. Most of the budget was spent on that first curry, so keeping it under $50 is impossible now.
What?
He went pale at my lie. He really didn't want to divorce. Thank you for everything. Let's get divorced.
Wait!
What's the matter? You wanted to educate me in front of the relatives. Weren't you dissatisfied with everything I do and thinking of divorce? As I asked with a sly smile, he had tears brimming in his eyes.
It's not that. I just wanted to be a strong husband in front of you. To be seen as great and capable.
I always thought you were constantly annoying and troublesome. You negated everything I did. It's natural to feel that way.
You should have told me.
I did argue back, didn't I? But you never listened, always calling it excuses. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. He fell silent, looking down, and finally, tears fell. If you continue to behave selfishly like that, I will really divorce you. You may not have been serious about it, but flaunting divorce means you're okay with the other person drifting away.
I'm really sorry. I think I created this image of a husband in my mind. Being older, I thought I had to be relied upon. But I also took advantage of you, thinking you'd do everything. I can't be that imposing outside, but I assumed you'd accept it, and I took you for granted.
After confessing his true feelings while crying, he prostrated himself on the floor.
I mean it. I'll change my ways. I'll prioritize you, Mina, above everything. I won't threaten you with divorce or do anything despicable. I'll listen to your words and feelings. I want to be with you.
What should I do? Upon hearing my words, he trembled momentarily. I won't forgive everything that's happened, but I have conditions for you. If you agree to them, I won't divorce you.
Are you saying you'll forgive me?
I said I won't forgive. Any little problem, and it's instant divorce. You won't have a say in it.
I'm sorry.
My husband apologized again, completely subdued. I'm going to get a part-time job. This way we'll be equals. So you'll do housework too. Understanding my burden. We're a couple after all. We should share both the good and the bad.
Understood.
But just so you know, housework doesn't mean cooking with ingredients I bought or taking out trash I gathered, okay?
What?
You'll go shopping and plan meals. Taking out the trash includes sorting it first. Be mindful of saving on groceries and managing savings. Think you can do it? He swallowed hard, likely thinking it impossible. But soon he said,
I'll do it. I'll do as you say. But please, teach me what I don't know.
That's an easy request. I always wanted a mutually supportive relationship. Okay, deal. Oh, and one more thing. Show me your sincerity in whatever way you can. This is your final condition. Your husband training, I suppose. He looked more troubled at the request to show sincerity than doing housework. Understandably. He had never even thanked me for housework before. Just show sincerity in any form. Must be baffling for him. Being told what to do is easier, he might think. But him figuring it out will surely lead to actions that show he cares. After a silence, he said,
I'll try.
10 years have passed since then. In hindsight, those initial conditions might have been too lenient. I later made them stricter. For 1.5 years, the same duration I did after marriage, you will do all the housework every day, take care of yourself, and if I express any dissatisfaction, correct it immediately. Never make me uncomfortable. Instant divorce if you fail or complain. Also, wake me up on time every morning, set the alarm yourself. It's the same as what I had been doing, but more demanding because of the threat of divorce. It was almost slave-like in its lack of tolerance for failure. Yet he managed to pull through and met the conditions after a year and a half. After that, I acknowledged his change of heart. I planned to split the household chores with him, but somehow he naturally ended up doing most of the housework except for cooking dinner. During the period when he was conditioned to do housework, he took care of dinner using pre-made meals, but afterwards, since I got home earlier from my part-time job, I started handling it. Or rather, there's not much left for me to do if I don't. However, it seems my husband finds even that regrettable. He now wakes up earlier than me to prepare breakfast with dessert, handles the trash, and even wakes me up if I oversleep. Apparently, he's become skilled in cooking and cleaning, and seeing me genuinely happy about it seems to bring him joy. The show of sincerity I asked of my husband has become indistinguishable from his everyday actions towards me, doing things that he thinks will please me. On ordinary days, he brings home my favorite foods, and if I casually mention a dish looks tasty on TV, he learns the recipe and tries hard to make it. He reflects on the past, saying, "Instead of showing off and being bossy, I should have done things that make you smile." Now, he's so good at Italian and Chinese cuisine, I wonder if he's a professional. He even attended cooking classes secretly. It's amazing how people can change. His kindness and transformation are delightful. But I need to be careful not to become a spoiled wife who is pampered too much. Divorce was an option back then, but he hadn't cheated or lacked love for me. It was just that his way of expressing it was wrong or misguided. It was a mistake due to his clumsiness. If he ever reverted to being domineering, I wouldn't hesitate to choose divorce, but that worry seems unnecessary now. He's become a doting father to our now 5-year-old daughter, making whole cakes with pâtissier-level skills for snacks. If I let go of the past, he's a husband who doesn't stray, earns a decent income, and actively participates in housework and parenting. A prime catch indeed. My mom friends and colleagues at my part-time job always envy me when I talk about him. Everyone has failures and flaws. I'm sure I caused trouble for him too, being naive. We're both at fault. The important thing is how we face and control our own mistakes and flaws. We want to show our child that as a couple, we can speak openly about our shortcomings and work on them together. But there's a lingering effect on my husband. "Sorry, did I do something wrong?" He gets scared whenever I make curry for dinner. "Does Daddy not like curry?" Our daughter tilts her head. "Yeah, weird Daddy. It's yummy though. Our home is peaceful today."
Well, that's how it is. So I'll take that luxury foreign car off your hands. It's wasted on a plain woman like Margareta. Just the other day, my folks were saying they wanted to buy a new car.
Ever since we got married, my husband, Brandon, has become increasingly selfish. He even started coveting the precious car I got from my parents. I had been enduring it for a long time, but even I had reached my limit. My name is Margareta. I'm 25 years old. I met my husband, Brandon, at college, and we have been married for 2 years. Compared to me, who's introverted and not great at socializing, Brandon is outgoing and has many friends. We got to know each other in our college seminars, and gradually we began to talk more, eventually studying together in libraries and cafes. Even though we were in the same seminar, I never imagined someone as plain and unnoticeable as me would end up dating someone popular like Brandon. And to my surprise, it was Brandon who asked me out. I was ecstatic, experiencing mutual love for the first time. Of course, I immediately said yes to his proposal, and our relationship started. It made sense that I was drawn to Brandon. He was good-looking, had a friendly demeanor, was serious about his studies, but it should have been different for Brandon. He had plenty of cute, fashionable female friends around him. He could have easily found someone else to be his girlfriend. I once boldly asked Brandon, "Do you really think I'm the right one for you?" He looked surprised and responded, "Huh?
What brought this on?
I'm like this and don't have much confidence. Just wondering why you chose me as your girlfriend. After pondering a bit, Brandon muttered a typical response.
Well, I guess it's comfortable being with you.
I must have looked unsatisfied because he then said,
What's with the silence? Do I really need to spell out everything I like about you?
Brandon replied with a hint of annoyance, fiddling with his mobile phone. Not wanting to push him away, I quickly wrapped up the conversation. Yeah, you're right. Sorry for bringing it up out of the blue. Though I had lingering doubts, our relationship continued smoothly. Time flew by. We graduated from college, got married, and moved into a condominium. I found a job at a general company, while Brandon pursued graduate studies and academic research. When I mentioned getting married, Mom seemed very happy. That's a great deal. Dad and I were a bit worried. We thought Margarita would at least introduce a boyfriend to us. Sorry, I should have told you about Brandon sooner. That's all right. You've always been one to keep things to yourself, Margarita. Always trying not to trouble us, handling everything on your own. But knowing you have someone to support you makes me relieved. Brandon will be there to protect you. My parents also met in college and still have a loving relationship, which I admire. Dad was a hard worker. After graduating, he joined a renowned company, steadily climbing up the ranks to an executive position. There is Mom, who respects Dad and supports him by his side. She used to work at a publishing company, and after getting married, she perfected her hobby of cooking while raising her children. Now, she's a popular cooking expert, having published several recipe books and teaching cooking classes. They respected each other's lives and never restricted one another. Growing up under their roof, I too developed a spirit of independence. Though my only forte was studying, I didn't pursue graduate school. I wanted to be self-sufficient as soon as possible and establish my own life. I was raised comfortably in a well-off family, but I couldn't remain the pampered daughter forever. I wanted to build my own family, just like Dad and Mom. I hope to have children one day and make my parents happy. It was more a goal than a dream. It might seem ordinary, but it's not that simple, especially for someone as awkward as me. After we started living together, Brendan gradually became more selfish. He was a graduate student and worked part-time, but he hardly contributed to our living expenses. Hey, Brendan, it would really help if you could put a little more of your part-time earnings towards our expenses. I said this casually, not wanting to upset him, but he coldly replied,
What? I do contribute some, besides. Didn't you say, when we decided to move in together, that you would handle the living expenses, Margareta?
Brandon had always said he wanted to be a professor, which is why he went to grad school. Brandon has been saying that for a while, wanting to support his dream. When we decided to get married, I said I got a decent salary from the job I landed after graduation. Don't worry about it, just focus on your research, Brandon. I mumbled hesitantly, yeah, I did say that, but couldn't say anything more definite, and Brandon let out a big sigh.
Oh, I guess you wouldn't understand, Margareta. Being a grad student involves a lot of expenses for socializing and stuff. Oh, I forgot to mention, I need to go on a research trip soon. And, I'm a bit short on the travel funds. Could you lend me like $500? I'll pay you back later.
This kind of financial pressure from Brandon became more frequent after that, and the problems deepened. The number of nights Brandon spent out increased noticeably. I sat in front of cold meals, waiting for a call on my mobile phone. On the rare occasion he came home in a good mood, I remained too lenient. Sometimes he would say,
Hey, Margareta, remember you wanted to visit that place? I have tomorrow off. Let's go together.
Bringing up trips out of the blue, or
Wow, today's dinner is my favorite. That's so like you, Margareta. Always knowing what I like.
I was constantly swayed by his words and actions.
Every time Brendan was kind to me, I caught a glimpse of the ideal married life, and my heart wavered. I knew this unnatural way of living couldn't last. Tormented by loneliness and anxiety, and unable to confide in anyone, I kept everything to myself. I didn't want to sadden my parents, who had been so happy when we decided to get married, but they must have started to realize something was wrong. When I visited my parents' house after a long time, Dad casually said,
"Why don't you stay tonight? You must be tired from the unfamiliar life. How about dinner with the family for a change?"
That night, Mom prepared an array of lavish dishes showcasing her culinary skills. During dinner, Dad mentioned,
"By the way, your sister visited the other day. She wanted to see you, Margareta. She said you should get together for tea sometime."
"It's always sudden with her."
"That's just how she is. I keep telling her to let us know in advance."
Dad shrugged as if it couldn't be helped. The sister he referred to was my Aunt Eileen, a lively, ambitious, and independent woman. I'll get in touch with her soon. Yes, do that. Eileen loves you a lot, Margareta.
She's always complaining about how Brandon stole you from her, and yet she's adamant about not getting married herself. Well, that's just Eileen for you.
Before I met Brandon, Eileen was more like an older friend than an aunt. I could talk to her about things I couldn't tell my parents. She understood me better than anyone and always supported me. I was too shy to tell her about Brandon at first. I wanted to see Eileen again and show her I was doing well. A few days after staying at my parents', I met Eileen at a cafe we had arranged to meet at. Eileen, a fashion designer, was dressed exceptionally stylishly as usual. Eileen scrutinized my outfit from head to toe and said gently, "You know, Margareta, for a woman, marriage is just the beginning of a lifelong challenge. You'd always feel attractive. No matter how little confidence you have, clothes can transform you, so never neglect yourself." And she elegantly sipped her tea. Indeed, I had completely forgotten about fashion lately. "I'm so sorry for not getting in touch for so long." I apologized in a low voice, and Eileen said, "That's just like you, Margareta. Being honest and serious is great, but being too timid comes from a lack of experience. But I was so happy when I heard you had found someone special. I thought finally Margareta has taken her first step." It had been a long time since I had met someone outside on a day off. Luckily, the weather was perfect. Sitting at the terrace, the warm sunlight poured down on us. In this peaceful atmosphere, I felt I could open up about my worries to Eileen without feeling too down. Yeah, at first, I thought even someone as timid as me could make it work with Brandon, that I could really do it, but Eileen listened to my whole story without interrupting, just nodding kindly. When I finished, she asked, "I guess you haven't told your parents about this, have you, Margareta?" "Yes. I even hesitated about telling you today. I didn't want to admit my weaknesses to anyone. I thought I should be able to overcome this on my own, to be truly independent. I know if Dad and Mom heard about this, they would want to take me back home right away. So I want to try to handle this by myself as much as I can." Eileen respected my decision and didn't press any further. But she said at the end, "If you ever really need help, let me know first. If my dear Margareta asks for help, I'll come to you no matter where I am." A month later, Mom called and said, "When you have time, could you come over? It's not urgent." I had the next day off, so I visited my parents. Seeing a car parked in the driveway, I exclaimed, unable to hide my excitement. "What? Dad, this car? Did you get it recently?" Dad, with a satisfied look, teasingly said,
"Want to take it for a spin?"
"Really? Can I? It's such a fancy car. What if I crash it?"
"Don't worry about that. This car is for you, Margareta. Use it as you like. It'll be handy to have."
Mom whispered to me, "We saw this car in a TV commercial and you said it was cool."
Dad remembered that, so this is our gift to you. You have been having a tough time lately, so we wanted to cheer you up. If things get hot, just drive this and come home anytime." She smiled kindly. The car Dad chose for me was an SUV from a world-famous foreign brand, and he had even secured a parking spot near my condominium. I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. Later, when I was driving the car downtown, I fumbled in my pocket, found the car key, and pressed the button. The lights flashed in all directions. Just then, a familiar voice called out from behind.
"What's up with that car?"
I turned around to see my husband, Brandon. He hadn't been home for quite a while. It was almost like we were separated. I was speechless, and he said with a know-it-all look,
"Oh, I see. Got it from your parents, huh?"
Whenever I faced Brandon, I found myself unable to say anything. But I was tired of feeling that way. "Brandon, it doesn't matter to you anymore. You probably don't care about me anymore," I said, mastering my voice and piecing my words together. Then Brandon uttered something unbelievable.
"What? You're just realizing now? Did you seriously believe all this time that I loved you? It's laughable how optimistic you are."
His dry laugh echoed in my ears. Something inside me finally snapped, and I blurted out unusually loudly, "Then why did you marry me?"
Wow, hysterical much? Fine, I'll tell you. Your family is rich, right? I figured marrying Margarita would mean I wouldn't have to worry about food for a while, considering what I make from part-time work and studies. So I'll take that car too. It's wasted on a plain woman like you. My parents were just saying they wanted to change their car. It's like killing two birds with one stone. Doing a favor for my parents.
Brandon was completely unabashed, spouting his justification.
Oh, and if you refuse, we're getting a divorce. You know, without me, you might never find another man. So think hard at home and what's the right decision.
Brandon threw these words and left abruptly. I was left in a state of anger and sorrow. Overwhelmed by a terrible headache, breathing ragged, I sat in the driver's seat for a while, waiting for my emotions to settle. Then I took out my phone and called my Aunt Eileen. A few days later, things took a rapid turn. I readily agreed to the divorce and left the condominium to return to my parents' home. My parents welcomed me with open arms, and life finally seemed to regain some tranquility. But a week later, during a peaceful afternoon, an unwelcome visitor arrived. My ex-husband Brendan stood at the front door accompanied by his parents. After they were ushered into the living room, Brendan's father started.
"We're here to discuss our son's divorce. It's quite urgent."
His tone was intimidating.
When writing the divorce papers, Brendan was told by Margareta, "If you don't agree to the divorce, I'll ruin your future. With my parents' connections in the university, it would be easy to crush a junior grad student's career if their only daughter cries to them."
He truly loved Margareta. Such treatment is too much.
This is clear intimidation. We could easily contest the divorce. He was deceived by a terrible woman. Behind her plain appearance, she's a mean-spirited, greedy woman.
Poor Brandon. I heard she paid him to stay away. She must have had men over.
We need to go to family court and claim Brandon was threatened by his wife. But if there is an appropriate apology, things might change. For instance, if Margareta gives up that car she's driving, that might smooth things over.
Brandon remained silent beside his protesting parents. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and after a brief pause, Mom sighed and went to the door. Elaine appeared behind Mom as she returned to the living room. "Sorry, I'm late. How far have you gotten in the discussion?" Brandon's family had met Elaine once at my wedding.
"What are you doing here? It's rude to barge in like that. We're busy now. Outsiders should leave."
Now, don't be like that. You'll hear about Brandon's divorce, right?
How does an outsider like you know about that?
I was informed by my brother earlier. I couldn't stay away from such a crucial moment for my dear niece. Elaine gave a small reassuring glance. "You're probably here to cancel the divorce or beg for money. Can you still say that after seeing this?" Eileen pulled out a stack of documents from her bag, spread them out on the table, and showed them. I hired a detective to investigate. It seems Brandon, despite being married, has been cheating with several women. He rarely came home because of that. He took advantage of Margarita's kindness to live as he pleased, even begging for money.
That's nonsense. I was just busy with my research at the university. When I did come home, we ate together and went on trips, right? Oh, we were like any other married couple, right, Margarita? Say something. Brandon, you don't need to say anything. We'll handle this. It's not your fault. We understand,
said his father. That's right. These documents from who knows where are surely lies. Our Brandon would never cheat. He's such a kind and excellent son. His mother protested. You may be kind to your parents, but that's only within your family. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now, Brenda's mother, please look at these photos, Eileen said, pulling out a picture from the documents. Recently, I stayed at a hotel for a business meeting and saw Nicholas there. He was with a beautiful woman looking quite intimate, so I asked the detective to investigate Nicholas too. The results were as I expected. You understand, don't you? Brandon's mother's face turned pale. She grabbed the documents and scanned them intensely. What is this, Nicholas? Since when have you been doing this?
It's a lie. All lies. Veronica, stop looking. Give me that.
Nicholas, looking panicked, tried to snatch the documents, but it was too late. Veronica, distraught, confronted Nicholas. You have been doing this behind my back? The car you wanted so badly was for her in these photos, wasn't it? No matter how Nicholas tried to calm her, Veronica wouldn't listen. The discussion about Brandon's divorce was forgotten. Veronica left the house crying, and Nicholas hurried after her. Brandon, left behind, said,
Hey, wait, what about me?
And followed them out in confusion. We all remained in stunned silence for a while, but Eileen was the only one with a satisfied look winking at me. Later, Eileen told me that Brandon's parents did indeed get divorced. You won't fall for such a terrible man again. Let's make you more attractive. I'll teach you everything about polishing yourself as a woman. Despite her busy schedule, Eileen visited me and took me to various places. Meals, shopping, trips. During this time, I learned a lot from her. A year after the divorce, I decided to go to graduate school. I continued to improve myself while studying hard. Time flew, and one day, someone called out to me at a street intersection. I turned around to see Brandon.
It's been a while. You changed a lot, haven't you? At first, I didn't even recognize you.
Brandon said, looking at me intently. In Brandon's eyes, the woman standing before him was no longer the plain ex-wife he knew, but had transformed into an incredibly beautiful and attractive woman. In contrast, Brandon himself had fallen on hard times. Due to the scandal of his parents' divorce, it seemed he was no longer attending graduate school. His parents, Nicholas and Veronica, had decided not to provide any financial support to Brandon anymore because of the situation he caused. He was far from the carefree life of going out, struggling even to afford his tuition and living expenses. The women who once flocked around him left him one by one. The farmer glory he enjoyed vanished in an instant, and now he found himself face to face with his ex-wife, who seemed to be a completely different person. Brandon, perhaps feeling desperate, started to say,
Hey, would you like to catch up? Maybe we could go to a cafe or something?
Just as he began, a man approached and asked,
Sorry for the wait. Are you a friend of Margarita's or something?
Shifting his gaze to Brandon. This man was Leonard, someone I was currently dating. You see that guy? Isn't he really handsome? He's so tall. Wow, yeah. Could he be a model or something? A group of women nearby commented, looking at Leonard. He's someone I used to know a long time ago, but it's okay. We are done talking. Let's go, shall we?
Is that so? All right then, let's go.
Leonard said, taking my hand and briefly greeting Brandon.
Brandon stood there stunned, watching us. Without any concern for Brandon, Leonard led me by the hand towards the crosswalk. And I, too, never looked back, keeping my eyes fixed straight ahead as we left.